Rejection. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, I'm Nicole. Because it will provide some context for what I'm about to talk about today, how to rejection-proof your writing, let me give a quick rundown of some of my credentials. So I am a traditionally published novelist. I am an indie published novelist. I have been MFA writing faculty for a wonderful MFA program for going on 10 years now, which is actually hard to believe. In addition, I am the founder and, let's say, chief editor at Altitude Press, which is a small press. At this point, we just do flash fiction anthologies, but they've been a lot of fun. And again, this really informs what I'm about to talk about. Rejection is something we're all familiar with, any creative. But if we hone in specifically with writers, which is what I want to do in this video, then anyone who has ever tried to send their work out to get it published, whether it's you have answered a call for submissions for a journal, or you have queried an agent, which isn't exactly getting your writing published, but it's a step along the way, or you have directly submitted your work to an editor, it may be a larger publishing house, you more likely than not have encountered rejection in some form or another. And what's more, even if you are already a published author who has had your work out there, you have likely encountered rejection after that. I think those are just the odds, and those are the likelihoods, that once you have something published, it's very easy to think, wow, I'll never encounter rejection again, when in fact, it can be really common for authors throughout their careers to write certain books, certain poems, certain pieces, certain stories that for one reason or another, even after they've been proven to be popular and have a readership, that next thing doesn't get published. Now, a professional author will use that as an opportunity to pivot. They will not allow that to stop them from seeking publication. So wherever you are in the journey, maybe you've never submitted anything. Maybe you have submitted many things, let's say in the past year, and you are coming up against a wall of rejection over and over again. Or maybe you're getting ghosted, which seems to be more and more common these days, both from editors and agents. And I think it's so unfortunate. At the same time, I can sort of understand it, because agents and editors, specifically those who have sort of a presence, they're getting to be known, or they're already established, they are getting bombarded, just swamped with submissions. And so I do kind of get that more from the editorial perspective. I still am really against that practice of just ghosting authors. And yes, I guess it's easier to ghost an author than to send a rejection, because that's never fun either. I can tell you, I have been on both sides of that equation. I've mentioned that before on this channel, that I have been that author who has received plenty of rejections since my 20s. So that back in the days of mail, when we would get them by mail, postal service mail, I've received them by email. It is a thing, okay? And I have also, since founding the small press, been on the other side of it when sending rejections. And that's never fun, as I said, but I always think it's better than just ghosting an author and not responding and leaving that author hanging. That's actually the subject for another video. But let's right now get into, from my experience, I have been writing seriously, writing for publication, since the early 1990s. And so, again, I've seen it from both sides of the equation. And I've talked about this with writers for all these decades, and really on a daily basis, I'm working with writers. And I have honed a list of things that I try to really adhere to, and that I encourage you to adhere to. If some of these resonate with you and you realize, wow, I'm not doing that, or I am doing that and it's not good, drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know your experience. Or maybe you think I'm leaving something off of this list that really should be on there, from whatever your perspective might be, whether you're an agent, an author, an aspiring author, an editor, a reader, whatever you think should be on this list. I would love to hear from you, so let me know. Okay, so without further ado, let's start from the beginning, before the writing necessarily even takes place. Let's say you're writing a novel, and you just know that you want to write a novel, you have a story in mind. It's not enough to just say, I'm writing a novel, or I'm writing the great American novel, which is, the old cliche. You need to know your genre. You need to know your category. You need to know who the intended audience for this is. And by that, I mean, what does the readership demographic look like? Is this a novel for teens, in which case it would be a YA novel? Is a novel for adults? Great. What genre? Sci-fi, romance, mystery, thriller. Maybe it's a literary novel, so they can be considered to sort of transcend genres, right? Where the focus is really on the writing and the beauty of the language used. Whatever the case, you need to be able to categorize your work. Some people will say, but Nicole, I don't want to categorize my work. It sort of transcends everything. It's just this beautiful tome on the existence of humans and what it means to be in this world. Okay, that's great, but know that the marketplace might not think that's so great. The marketplace will likely, and by marketplace I mean agents and editors, look at that and go, okay, well, I don't know where this would fit on a bookstore shelf. I don't know if this is a satirical piece for middle-aged readers primarily, not that other people can't read it, but there's sort of that target audience, that target demographic. I don't know if this is for teens or new adult, which is typically the age after young adult, sort of, college age and above. Those stories tend to concern that part of the population. You need to know those things. You need to know if you're serious about submitting and you're not just doing it as a fun experiment, you need to know where this is going to fit on the bookstore shelves. How is this going to be categorized? Who are you writing for? And what type of story is it? Further to that, and we're still on number one here, know what's popular currently in that genre, that category. Now, a big caveat here. I don't say that so that you try to write to that trend. It's called writing to trend, and there are different viewpoints about it. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of saying, ooh, let's go back, a decade or so. Vampires are really hot right now in young adult fiction. I'm going to write a vampire novel. The truth is, if something is really hot currently, it probably won't be so much by the time your novel, should it make it through all the various steps in the process, hits the shelves. So that trend probably will have passed. However, I do think it's important to study what's currently hot. Study what was hot 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Get to know sort of the movement of this genre, the movement of this category. And then from there, it's sort of always a gamble, because I don't recommend writing to trend. You maybe have some trendy elements in there, but agents, editors are probably looking for the next thing. But stay current on your reading, because when it comes to using comp titles, for example, which is being able to say to an agent, my book is like, it's always great to be able to name current books, okay? Especially current books that have sold well, okay? You don't necessarily want to go for all bestsellers, but books that are sort of in the current conversation, the current literary conversation. So get inspired by what's selling, what's current, what people are looking for as readers, but don't copy. Okay, so that's sort of the pre-writing. But again, I think it is a key step in starting to make your own writing rejection-proof. Number 2, write the story that is in you. It's in your heart, it's in your gut, it's in your bones, wherever you're feeling that story or poem or collection of poems or graphic novel. I think it's really, really important to create the story that you really want to tell. It feels like it needs to be told, and it needs to be told by you. This might seem to sort of contradict what I said before about be inspired by what's currently out there. It doesn't really contradict, because you can be inspired voice-wise, theme-wise, language usage-wise. You can be inspired in all sorts of different ways, but your story should be your own. Agents, editors, people who are running literary journals, they don't want something that's already been done. They want something from you, and yes, there might need to be parameters on it, more about that later, but it should be your voice, your story. I was recently editing a story for an upcoming anthology by an author I've worked with before, and one of the things that I love about this author's work is that I can read a few lines of a story and know immediately who wrote it, because the voice from story to story is very consistent. And that's just something that I don't think you can fake. I don't think you can sort of cosplay that. You either have a strong voice or you don't. Another author I work with has more of a nimble way of writing, wherein this author can sort of change a little bit and morph from piece to piece, but it works. So yeah, that's all I want to say about that. So get inspired, but write the story that is in you. Number 3, please get honest feedback. You might have a friend, a family member, a coworker, someone who is a really good reader. If they can also be objective and they're not terrified of hurting your feelings or crushing your dreams by being honest with you about your work, that's fantastic. I think more often than not, it's really great to join with a writer's group, or if you already have existing writer friends, writer connections, swap readings with those people, swap critiques. We're all short on time these days. I guess I shouldn't say we're all, but I think most of us are pretty short on time these days. Reading and providing quality feedback can be time consuming. It can be energy consuming. But if you can find someone who would like to maybe swap that, or swap for editorial services or graphic design services, that is absolutely key. Please get feedback on your work before you send it out to anyone, because once you send it out, you've kind of sent it out. It's been out, it's been seen. And so it's hard to send it out, get a bunch of rejections, and then, okay, I'm going to edit this and send it out again, especially to the same people. If they've seen it and it's a no, it's probably a no. So get some good feedback beforehand. What works, what doesn't? Ask specific questions. And again, try to find someone, I think ideally, who's also a writer. If you can't find someone who's a writer, then definitely someone who is an avid reader. And hopefully they're an avid reader in this genre or in this category. They read this type of thing, so they have a well-trained eye. Getting feedback, getting critique, and then taking the time to just sit on that for a little bit. You know, what resonates with you, what doesn't. Maybe put the piece away for a while. I've done videos on this part of the process before, so I won't rehash everything here. But being able to, it's sort of like sending it out as a test and seeing the response it gets. And this is why I love writing groups, because you get a range of feedback, hopefully, right? So that's really good. So definitely get critique. Number 4, a direct extension of that is revise, edit, polish this thing to within an inch of its life, and then do it again. So this process, if you haven't gone through this yet, if you just think, wow, I'd really like to write something and send it out, be willing to take time. Please don't rush your work. And it is a multi-step process to really produce a great piece of literature or poetry that an editor or an agent will look at and go, yes, I want this. So revise, edit, and polish this piece to within an inch of its life. Do your best. Personally, I'm not a big fan of hiring an editor at this point. It can be costly. If you have the money and you want to go that route, that's fine. I don't think that most editors or agents are looking for something that needs no work. Likely little things will need to be tweaked, but it should be polished. There shouldn't be obvious typos, language usage issues, poor punctuation. Again, there are programs that will help you with a lot of this, starting with Microsoft Word, the editor feature. Most writing programs have some sort of editor feature. I'm not talking about AI, by the way, but AI is being used as a tool here too. That again is a whole nother video. But if you're sort of old school like I am, just using the basic editing features just to find your typos, find words that are repeated. I'm also a huge fan, I've done videos about this, read your work aloud as part of this revision and editing process. So read it aloud to yourself, have someone else read it to you, or a robo reader. Again, you can go to one of the many programs out there where you can put the text in and it will read it back to you. Again, you can do this right within Microsoft Word. But that's a huge, important step. And it might seem a little bit, well, duh, you know, of course you have to revise, edit, and polish, but you would be amazed at how many submissions we get at this little small press that unfortunately are just, they look like a first draft, and it's such a bad, unfortunate way to present yourself, because it's the first impression, it's often the only impression, and it's just a sure way for any legitimate publisher or agent to just say no, not having this one. Number 5, this isn't directly pertaining to the work itself, but it's more about the presentation of you as the author. So what I want you to do, craft a really strong bio. And you might say, Nicole, I don't have any writing credentials. I don't have any publications out there. I've never been published. That's fine. You still have life experience. You still have interests within the literary realm. Maybe you're an avid reader. Maybe you have a popular website or other interests that somehow pertain to the writing. Maybe you're a student as an undergraduate or a graduate student, let's say in an MFA program. Mention these things. Personalize yourself. This doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out biography. What I typically request from my authors is a paragraph, like 4 to 6 sentences, a bio. Very common is to put, mention your name. You can do this in first or third person. And I would say craft a bio that allows you to sort of easily morph it as needed. Your name, any publishing credentials you do have, even if they're small, maybe even you're an editor at your university's literary magazine. That's great. Anything that sort of speaks to your journey as a writer or to the story. If you're writing nonfiction, for example, what makes you qualified to write this? Are you a doctor, an artist in a particular realm, or you've had this incredible experience that pertains to the heart of the book you've written, the manuscript you've written, for example. So craft a bio. These will be needed in query letters. They'll be needed in submission packages. They're needed even when, let's say, you have a poem you're trying to get published in an online journal that just publishes tons of poets and it's fresh and it's constantly being updated. Even then, when you send an email, you want to give them some sense of who you are, so you can pull that from your bio. So have that ready as part of what I would call your packet. Again, a whole nother video could go into discussing this, but often, say for novelists, you're going to want to have a synopsis, often a short synopsis, and then a full-length synopsis, a bio. You're going to want to have all these different things in your packet. But for now, as a good start, have a strong bio. And if you're not sure how to do that, look at examples. If you're a short story writer, find an anthology or a literary journal and see how these bios are being done. And then think about how you could craft yours. And if you really draw a blank because it's about you, and sometimes we don't really know what to write about ourselves, ask the people closest to you. Ask professional colleagues. What are some things that you would put in my bio if you were writing my bio? That can be a great way to generate ideas and to get ideas that you might have not ever thought of on your own. All right, number 6. This is an extension of the bio these days. Please have some sort of professional online presence. Again, I work with writers every day, and one of the biggest concerns I see from writers who are, it's sort of allergy season and we've got bugs, and so I feel like I've got little things on me. One of the things I see very commonly from my students is this anxiety, I would say, about being online, about having some sort of an online presence. I think writers these days, especially newer writers, often feel like they have to be out there sort of hawking their wares and putting themselves out there and talking about their book and creating an email list. And while marketing is important, especially if you're an indie, but also if you're traditionally published, it's important to put marketing skills to work. And if you don't have them yet, to develop them. But I'm not talking about that here. I'm talking about have a place where you can be found that does not involve red Solo cups or drunken escapades or people taking pictures of you at your worst or whatever it might be. And again, unless the project pertains to, a certain lifestyle, I guess that's fine. But even so, I would still have a professional presence of some kind online. You might be young, you might be still in school, you might just be working part-time jobs. Hey, you're a writer. It's more likely than not that that's going to happen at some point. Still be findable in a way that you can sort of control, if that makes sense. So have some image control. I can tell you as an editor, it takes 5 seconds if I'm interested in tracking someone down, or if I read a story and I like it, there's something in their bio that I'm like, I wonder if they really wrote that. Maybe it's a story I read. I go and I look them up and I go, oh, wow, that is them. That's really cool. And it's not typically what is a deciding factor, but it can go into a decision. So make sure there is a place that you can reference in a query to an agent or in an email to an editor, a website, a Substack. There's so many different places you can be online, a LinkedIn even, and I won't go into the merits of these different things. It's up to you and what you're familiar with, what you're comfortable with. Have a place where you can be found, and it's professional, and maybe you're posting things, maybe you're not, but your information is there. Because again, these days, I think it's just a must, because you are being, if an editor is interested or an agent is interested, they're going to look you up. Okay. I really believe that. And if they don't, okay. But I would, especially if I was, trying to take on, a novel length project, something I was going to be working on with this author for potentially a long time, or that my colleagues were going to be working on for a long time. Just really important, have a little professional home base online, okay? And I think there are probably lots of great videos and other resources for how to do that. You don't have to commit a ton of time, but just good headshot, some good solid information that tracks, mention your writing, things like that, okay? Okay, when it comes to actually starting to get that work out there and get it positioned to where now we're getting close here to actually getting a yes or a no. So rejection looms. And this is when you are deciding, okay, what do I want to do here? Do I want to query agents, or do I want to submit this to editors at journals, or maybe editors at even larger publishing houses who accept what are called direct unsolicited submissions. This means you don't have to have an agent. You, Mr. or Mrs. Author, can send your submission to this editor, and they will work with you. Whereas many editors, especially at top houses, will not accept unsolicited submissions. They will only accept agented submissions, so submissions from agents. Know the difference, know who's who, and for this number 7, create a targeted list of agents, of editors, of people in charge of literary journals, poetry journals, wherever you're going to send this. Please, please, I beg you, in order to rejection-proof this piece of writing, do not just send it out scattershot. Do not just send it out, oh, this person's an agent, boom, I'm sending it. This person's an editor, boom, I'm sending it. You really need to do your research. You need to do your due diligence to create lists that are targeted, they're honed. Make notes. This agent repped this book that I love. This agent repped this book that is like mine. This agent is looking for. These days, agents and editors are online, and they are putting out there what they want to see in their inbox. And they're still getting everything under the sun. I can almost guarantee you, just from my little small sample size, relatively small, of submissions that I get, it's a whole thing. So know what you are looking for. So are you looking for an agent to rep your work, or do you want to only submit directly to editors? It's not the same thing. So again, know the difference. I've done a video on that. I can't remember the title at the moment, but if you look through it, I did it probably about a year or two ago. So make sure that your list is honed. It's crafted. Don't do these blanket queries, these blanket submissions. So I will give you an example from yesterday. In my small world of being the editor and founder of a small press. So the next anthology we have coming out from Altitude Press is Gen X theme, Generation X, those people born between 1965 and 1980-ish. So those of us who sort of came of age in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And just yesterday, I received a submission, and it even had, it's like they had read the guidelines, and this is, I'm not calling anyone out, this happens on at least a weekly basis, because they had the right title in the email, Gen X submission, they had the answers to the questions that we ask authors to answer, but the story had nothing to do with Gen X. This is pretty common. So do your research and then follow through with your research. This agent blatantly says they don't want YA sci-fi, YA science fiction. So don't send them YA sci-fi or something that is YA sci-fi adjacent. What are they looking for? And sometimes that can be hard, and we need to sort of have a little sit down with ourselves because, oh, this is my dream agent. I really want to work with this agent, but it says right here, this agent doesn't want ... And that's what I've written. I'm sorry that's your dream agent. Please don't think that you'll be the exception and that they'll look at your work and go, oh, wait, maybe I do want YA sci-fi. I mean, I guess it could happen, but I think it's a waste of your time. It's a potential waste of their time, or if they have an intern, it's a waste of the intern's time. But to help avoid that sting of rejection, which is likely in a scenario like that one, make sure your list is well targeted. Know what agents are looking for. Be open to working with agents who maybe aren't your dream agents. Same can be said for editors. And create a well targeted list so that imagine this person coming to you and saying, why did you email me? Why did you send me your story or your novel manuscript or your chapbook, your poetry collection? You can say, because I read in your information on your website that you're looking for A, B, and C. I know that you have repped this author that I love. You've also repped the author of this other book from 5 years ago. So you need to take the time to do your due diligence. Don't do those blanket queries, those blanket submissions. Every agent and every editor is different, and they're looking for different things. So be proactive, and from the get-go in your communications, let these people know, hey, reaching out to you because. That can go in your query. It can go in an email that accompanies whatever you're sending to them, okay, your manuscript. So be specific. And again, so much of this comes down to doing your due diligence, do your research. Let's move on to number 8. Please, I beg of you, this is a total extension of number 7 of creating that targeted list. Follow submission guidelines to the letter. That little story I just told about the author who sent something that was not at all what we're looking for is a great example. It's not offensive. It's not a huge waste of time. I hate being put in the position where I have to say this, we can't accept the story. It's not at all on theme. It's not what we're looking for. Don't make it easy for an agent or an editor or someone at a literary journal, the submissions person, to say this isn't what we're looking for. Don't make it easy. So again, do that due diligence. Look at the submission guidelines. However, whatever kind of a learner you are, let's say you're sort of an auditory learner, read the submission guidelines out loud to yourself so you make sure you're really noting everything. I tend to be a visual learner, and I guess what we would call a little bit of a kinesthetic learner. So what I would do back in the day with submission guidelines, I would grab them, I'd copy and paste them into, for a specific agent. At the time I was querying agents, I wasn't submitting directly to editors. Grab those submission guidelines, paste them into a Word document, and I would make a bullet point list out of them. I'd highlight some sections, I'd put them in bold. And for me, just the way I retain information and make sure I sort of was on track, getting sort of my hands in it by doing those physical acts of copying and pasting and messing with it a little bit, and then seeing it in a new form. I know that might sound strange, but those of you who are visual and or kinesthetic learners will get this. It helped me to ensure that I was following those submission guidelines and that I was sort of crossing the T's, dotting the I's, minding my P's and Q's, keeping my ducks in a row, what have you, okay? So follow those submission guidelines. If an agent says, I want a query, do not send me a synopsis, do not send me sample pages, don't send me a photo, never send a photo, please, unless it's requested, then just send a query. If another agent says, I want your query in your first 10 pages and a bio, a separate bio, or a one-page synopsis, send that. Show them from the get-go, I have read what you are requesting. Here are my documents. Some agents will say, do not send attachments, and they're worried about maybe getting a virus on the agency's system, the network. Other agents will say, only send attachments, this type of attachment. If they don't note it specifically, then you really can't know. But if they do, please don't think I will be the exception, because you probably won't be. And probably the intern or the agent, if they are reading submissions and queries themselves, we'll send it right to the bin. Okay, so follow those submission guidelines. Number 9, I have to sort of get my paper to where I can see it here. I touched on this a few minutes ago, but familiarize yourself with the other projects that that agent has repped, or the other projects that outlet, the editor, the publisher, has published. Again, what if they came to you and said, well, why would you choose us? Why did you send this query to me? Is it because of books I've repped or books we've published? And if so, which ones? So you need to be ready. You need to know your history, do your background research, because they're going to be doing it on you if they're interested in what you have sent them. I can almost guarantee that. So familiarize yourself with the other books, poems, pieces, and read them. You don't have to read everything that this agent has repped or everything that this house has published. That would be really difficult with the bigger houses, obviously. But get a sense. What is it they're publishing? What is it this person is repping? And if you can go easily online and read synopses of books, you can read descriptions, you can get to know a little bit. Do that. Don't just think, well, I haven't read anything else by this, the authors on this agent's list, but I have a feeling I'm just going to send it to them. You're doing yourself a big disservice because you have maybe one chance to say, hey, I know you rep Joe Schmo's wonderful novel from 5 years ago titled I, Joe Schmo, and I love this novel. It's just poignant and wonderful, and I really felt a kinship, and my writing is similar. You want to be able to have those kinds of conversations with these people. Is it required? No. Can it make you stand out if they express interest? Yes. So I would say take the time. Again, this takes time, this takes energy. I know that is often in short supply, but you are really cheating yourself if you don't invest there. So get to know at least some of the agent's list of authors and books. Get to know what is being put out by this journal, this publisher, what have you. And then finally, number 10, I'm just going to bring my notepad closer here. It's often said, and it doesn't seem like this, especially when you're a new author putting your work out there for the first time or trying to find an agent, trying to find editors. It is often said that the world of publishing is very small. Having been in it for a few decades now, well, a decade and a half, I would say, I've really been actively querying as an author, having my books published, starting a small press and working directly with authors that way. I can tell you that while it can sound cliche, it can sound a little trite, there is almost nothing more important than maintaining, developing, and continuing to evolve a professional and optimistic attitude. This is sort of an inside job. This isn't something that necessarily you're going to be writing about or sending in an email. I have a professional, optimistic attitude. But it's so important. I think it's foundational. And this list, I should have said at the beginning, and I'll say it now, is not ranked in any order of importance. If anything, I think it's ranked in order of go, in order of how these things typically play out. And what typically happens for many writers, I of course can speak for myself, I can't speak for other writers, but I can note all the writers I've worked with over the years and continue to work with every day, whether it's in my MFA classes or with my small press, Altitude Press. I can tell you that one of the biggest hurdles, definitely for myself, especially back in the day, and for authors who are coming up with their work and just starting to really get serious about this as a career, is maintaining not so much professionalism. That can be done, I think, more easily in the face of rejection, especially after you've sent your work out there and you've gotten a few rejections or maybe many rejections. Maintaining that optimism combined with professionalism. It's absolutely key. If you start going down that road, and I don't mean you can't sulk for a day or two, but if you start going down that road long term of, what am I doing? My writing's bad. Nobody wants what I've written. Nobody's ever going to want what I've written. This story will never find a home because 2 people have rejected it. If you start going down that road, it's amazing how quickly that can become a lifestyle, and it can just stop you in your tracks. There's just no reason for that. It could be you have to go back to the drawing board. Maybe you need to work on your craft skills. Maybe just your skills are awesome. Your voice is there. The story is just a perfect nugget. Let's say it's a story or a poem, but it just wasn't the right fit. That's one of the most common things that I say to authors when I have to send a rejection, and I hate that. It's just not quite the right fit. And sometimes it's sort of intangible. It's not always that they didn't follow the guidelines. I have received for this anthology and our other anthologies submissions that technically meet the requirements. They're on the theme, the writing is strong, but there's something, and often it's intangible, that just makes it not a good fit for this particular project. And I always try to convey that to authors, but I had that conveyed to me as an author, and it doesn't really help. It doesn't really lessen the sting, but it just is what it is. Every agent, every editor is just one person seeing that one piece of work on that day, and they're just making a judgment call. It's a yes or it's a no. There's typically no in between. Sometimes there is a revise and resubmit. So we want to, can you revise this or change some things about it and resubmit, and we'll have another look at it. I've had that happen as an author, and I've done that with my authors for the press too. Just like, this is almost there. I like what you're doing, but as it is, it's a no, but if you can revise and resubmit. That's pretty rare, but it does happen. But just know, as part of maintaining that professionalism, and not just maintaining, but building it, same with the positivity, the optimistic outlook on your own writing. Be your own cheerleader. Like, you have to kind of buy into this journey if you're going to be a writer, because rejection, as I said, it's out there, it's common. I don't know really any writers who, once they got on a roll, were never rejected again. Most writers, even after they've had some great successes, at some point they keep going. There's a project that just falls flat. It doesn't, either their publisher doesn't want it, or their agent sends it out, beyond that, and other publishers don't want it, whatever. They still have projects that need to be shelved. So don't let it stop you. And most importantly, don't let it sort of warp you and your attitude. And so you get to this angry place. I'm going to finish this on another story, a little mini story time with Nicole. And we recently received a comment from an author, had to send a rejection for a story. And this author basically responded, just telling us off. She's like, you guys are losers. This is lame. What are you doing? And I kind of chuckled, because I completely understand the impulse. I understand that impulse of just like, well, you don't want my story? Fine, you're an idiot. That said, again, the world of publishing is small, and it's not that I don't think people talk so much like, hey, by the way, never accept anything from this author because they told us off. But it's more like, you're representing yourself when you send work out there. And so don't get in the habit of snarky comments or snarky comebacks. If someone's really rude to you, and just obnoxiously so, that's one thing. But I don't think you should be submitting to those agents or publishers anyway. That's just, no. Do your research. Know you're dealing with professionals from the get-go. And if and when it's a no, and that really hurts and it stings, and you're quite sure that this project would have been a great fit for them. Again, I've been there. I understand that from the author's perspective. Please get to your highest self as much as possible and be gracious. You don't even have to respond to a rejection, but I've had authors respond. I've responded as an author. Thank you so much for the consideration. Have a nice day. You don't need to do that, but no response is fine. But please avoid unprofessional behavior. So that's sort of, again, where I wrap it up with that number 10. Stay professional inwardly, but also outwardly, and stay optimistic. It's so important, and that's more of a soul level thing. And as I said, that's sort of an inside job. So that's it. Those are my top 10 tips for rejection-proofing your writing. I hope this was helpful. I'd love to hear from you. Again, if you think I left something off just egregiously, let me know. If you found something particularly helpful, let me know. And I think that's about it. So I will see you all in the next video. In the meantime, write on. Don't let rejection stop you.